What's up, guys? Bill here. In this video, I'm going to talk about gap and goes. This is a setup I really like for off the open momentum trades. Not something that happens a ton for me because I just trade options, not commons. And when you're trading off the open, you got to be really careful about what types of tickers you're trading. They need really liquid options contracts, or they're going to be super spready, hard to get filled, and even worse, sometimes you get a really bad fill, right? But what I do is in pre-market, I just scan through my batch of, stocks I know I can trade off the open. And if anything's gapped up significantly, it catches my interest, but I really want to know where it's gapping over. And there's three main types of levels I'm looking at. Previous resistance that have been tested at least once and had major rejections there in the past. 2 would be all-time highs, and 3 would be 52-week highs. And I have a couple examples of those today, and I'm going to talk about execution options and things like that. So first, let's talk about AMD. AMD recently gapped over its previous all-time highs, which happened back here in 2021 at around 164.46. As you can see on the daily here, we gapped up on the 18th over it, all right? So let's go down to the smaller time frames. Here's the gap up day, and here's my key level, previous all-time highs. Here's where we opened, right? Right there. And you can see that we're kind of extended. We're about $2 over it, right? So here's where you got to make some execution decisions. You either need to wait for some type of pullback to get closer to your risk level. Otherwise, if you buy your whole position up here, you're going to be down quite a bit before you even test the support you're hoping will hold, right? So I don't recommend doing that. You can take a small size here and add full down here. And what I did was there was this 165 psych. It's also positive gamma. Positive gamma can act as support. Okay. So it was just here 50 cents above the all-time high. So what I did was I waited for the pullback to 165, added most of my position here. And I said, if it pulls a little bit more down here, I can add a little bit more, and then I'll have a nice average and we'll be right at my risk level. And fortunately, that worked out, right? We pulled right down. I got in a decent amount of contracts here, full size a little bit longer, down, and immediately within, 15 minutes, we were up $4, okay? And I played, this was a Thursday? No, yeah, Thursday, yesterday. So, they're weekly contracts. They move pretty quick, and it was a nice winning trade. That's one example of the gap and go, okay? This was over all-time highs. Let's look at a stock that gapped over a previous resistance and didn't pull back. So you're not always going to get pullbacks, guys. And that's fine, but we can talk about when maybe you might expect less likelihood of a pullback, okay? So Crowd, it was a peg name on earnings, power earnings gap, with a nice gain up into 262, ran into some resistance, and it ended up selling off quite a bit from this pivot, right? It ended up selling off $20, 20 plus bucks. So that's a major pivot there. We came back a few days later and closed right under it, okay? So we're coming back up to retest it. And we gap. Instead of having to fight through it, they gap it over it. That's usually a sign of strength and a lot of buyer interest, okay? So this might be one of those situations where you're scanning in pre-market and you see this gap and you look back and you say, oh, wow, look at yesterday. We were closing right at the resistance and they gapped over it. That might make you a little more aggressive off the open, right? So let's go check out on the smaller time frames. This day, where was it? Here. Here's that previous resistance. You get the gap up, and you can see there's no pullback at all. This candle opens. There's not even a centimeter of a wick, right? It just rips up $5 to 270. So what would happen in this case scenario? Like if I was playing this, I'm still a little, I'm never going to full size off the open. Like for me, full size on a trade is 10% of my account. I pretty much never do that off the open in general. And on a play like this, where this is the level I'm interested in, being extended by $3, I'm either going to miss this trade altogether because it never pulls back, or I'm going to be in very light size. That's going to leave me plenty of room to add full here at 261 without being underwater and needing to cut before I even see if this level is respected, right? So that's your options when you're doing these types of off morning gaps. You kind of got to make this decision for yourself. But you can see that these plays, you know, they're out there pretty much every day. There's something gapping up. It just depends if you're someone who buys commons or not. You're going to have a lot bigger field to choose from, unless you're, you know, than the options trader like me, who's going to need certain stocks with a lot of liquidity. So I'm not having to chase a bunch of gappy fills on the mid right off the open. But that's the gap and go. Just to review, we're looking for gaps in pre-market over either previous resistances or major pivots. 52-week highs or all-time highs. Hopefully that helps, guys. If you have any questions, leave a comment or find me on Twitter and I'll help you out.